All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And let me tell you, it's a nation with a story that's as deep and, well, turbulent as the waters surrounding it.
So, when you think of the Bahamas, what pops into your head? Probably this, right? This sprawling chain of over 700 islands and thousands of cays. It's the picture-perfect paradise, the ultimate escape.
But here's the thing. Beneath all that calm turquoise water, there is a history that is anything but calm. It's turbulent, it's dramatic, a story of incredible loss, total lawlessness, and a really long fight for freedom. So let's pull back that curtain, shall we? Okay, so we're going to start with the story you definitely won't find in the glossy travel brochures. This all begins with the island's very first people. 30,000, that's the number. That was the estimated population of the native Lucayan people. They were a branch of the Taino, and they'd been thriving here for centuries, long before any European ship showed up. This was their world when Christopher Columbus made landfall back in 1492. And then, within just 25 years, they were all gone. I mean, this was one of the fastest, most brutal depopulations of the entire era. The Spanish enslaved and shipped the entire Lucayan population over to Hispaniola. And there, between disease and just horrific forced labor, they were completely wiped out. The Bahama Islands were left totally empty, just deserted. Now, what's really wild about this timeline is just how fast the identity of these islands kept changing. I mean, think about it. They went from being the site of the New World discovery to a religious refuge for English Puritans, then a famous haven for pirates, and finally a plantation economy built on the backs of enslaved people. Just one dramatic shift after another. And yeah, about those pirates, for decades, these islands were a completely lawless paradise for the most infamous pirates of the time. We're talking about legends like Blackbeard. This Republic of Pirates, as it was called, got so bad, so disruptive to trade, that the British Empire finally had to step in. They made the Bahamas a crown colony, specifically to crush the outlaws and get things back in order. Okay, so after the American Revolution, you have this huge event that completely changes the island's population forever. Thousands of British loyalists, folks who were fleeing the newly independent United States, were resettled here. And crucially, they brought thousands of enslaved Africans with them. This is the moment that cemented the demographic reality that you still see today. From then on, people of African descent would be the majority. All right, so from that really complex colonial society with all its deep historical scars, how did we get to the independent nation we know today? Let's take a look at that journey. So this slide really explains the key political shift. The Bahamas went from being a crown colony, which basically means it was property run directly by the UK, to a Commonwealth realm. And what's that? Well, it's a completely independent, self-governing nation that just happens to share the British monarch as its head of state. A huge difference. And you know, this didn't happen overnight. It was a slow and steady march to get there. It started in the 50s with the first political parties forming. Then, in 64, they got internal self-government. A huge milestone in 67 with the election of the country's first black premier, Sir Lyndon Pinling, and all of that led up to the big day. Full independence on July 10th, 1973. And that brings us to the modern Bahamas. It's a nation with this really interesting dual identity, one that's built on two very, very different industries, and, of course, that powerful demographic legacy we just talked about. Okay, check this out. You can really see the two main pillars of the economy here. Tourism, that's the big one, the giant, making up about 70% of the GDP. But then there's that other pillar, offshore finance. That's the part you don't see on vacation, the quiet, behind-the-scenes world of international banking and investing. So let's be clear about what tax haven actually means here. It's not as cloak and dagger as it might sound. It just means the government's tax system is set up to attract foreign money. So the government doesn't get its revenue from things like income tax or corporate tax. Instead, it funds itself through stuff like import duties, sales tax, and licensing fees. And, you know, that has its own set of pros and cons for the local economy. Wow. I mean, this one chart tells you so much about the nation's history. Just look at this complete demographic flip. You go from a population that was almost 3/4 European back in 1722 to today where over 90% of Bahamians are of African descent. That is the direct living legacy of slavery, of that loyalist migration, and of emancipation. And out of all that history, you get this incredibly vibrant and unique culture. Sure, English is the official language, but you'll hear many Bahamians speaking a unique local Creole. And you have these amazing cultural traditions like Junkanoo. It's this spectacular Afro-Bahamian street festival with music, dance, unbelievable costumes. It's a powerful expression of national identity that really blends African roots with centuries of island history. And yeah, cricket is still the national sport, a little nod to that British colonial past. So, what's next? What does the future hold for this island nation? Well, ironically, the very thing that makes it a paradise, its beautiful geography, is also its biggest, most critical challenge. 80%. Just let that number sink in. 80% of all the land in the Bahamas is less than 10 meters. That's about 33 feet above sea level. That makes the nation one of the most vulnerable places on the entire planet to the existential threat of climate change and rising sea levels. And listen, this isn't some far-off, theoretical problem. This is a very recent, very devastating reality. In 2019, Hurricane Dorian, one of the most powerful Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded, just stalled over the islands. It caused catastrophic damage, a tragic loss of life, and it was just a brutal, brutal reminder of the immense stakes for the nation's survival.
So next time you think of the Bahamas, I want you to remember the story that's just beneath the surface. This is a truly resilient nation, one with a dramatic past and a very uncertain future. A place that was shaped by the powerful tides of human history, and now it's facing the literal rising tides of the sea.